We're back at the ruin, the sun has gone down, and I thought while we were waiting for the Milky Way to do its thing, let's have a look at this image here. And there's a great story behind why I want to show you this. And it all sort of centers around not this ruin, but another ruin further down the road. And what happened is I was mucking around and I thought it would be funny to see if I could get the stars to bokeh. And I pointed the camera up at a frame in the building and set it off on live composite while I was doing some other stuff around the ruin. And the most hilarious thing happened. I headed off down the road to a whole nother location for the night and got there, and I was packing up and I thought, oh, I'm kind of missing a camera, and realized that I had left the camera on at this ruin down the road, creating this live composite image. And what happened is it looked amazing. I'll show you now. And what had happened is because the stars were in bokeh, the star trails were just these thick, really thick sort of looking things. So tonight I'm going to recreate that. And what I've done, earlier today we were having a look at this pile of rubbish, and it's really nice because it's easy for me to position the camera. So what we're going to do is I have got a long lens, well, relatively, so it's 25mm. Normally when we're doing star trails or we're doing astro and that, we would use a wide angle lens. So I've got a 25 micro four third 25mm, so it's a 50mm equivalent. I've put it pretty close to this piece of wood, and there's a bit of metal behind there. So what I've done is I've brought the camera nice and close. We're going to focus up on the wood. Now I can't record this screen, unfortunately, but that's okay. You will see as I'm, whoops, accidentally press the go button. You'll see as we're building the image how that works. I'll show you them on the screen rather than recording the screen. So basically all I've done is I framed it up so that the piece of wood is on the left hand side of the frame, and I know up behind are the stars. I've got the aperture set to f1.2, and what that means is that it's only about a meter between the camera and the piece of wood, so that's going to be sharp in focus, and then the stars behind are going to be out of focus and in bokeh. Now I am going to use live composite on the Olympus camera to capture this image. However, as always, and this is so important, it doesn't really matter what camera you have. You can just take multiple exposures and then stack them in post-processing, whether that's with the Star Stacks program or Photoshop or whatever you use. Yeah, so I'll talk you through it while all the lights are on. I'll talk you through what we're doing. I must look like the Michelin Man. I've got about 40 layers on. It's starting to get really cold here. So what I do is I turn the camera on. It's in manual mode. I'm going to zoom in on this piece of wood here, and I'm going to focus up on that. Awesome. So I use focus peaking, zoom back out, make sure that my focus is on manual so it doesn't go looking for it. I'm set on f1.2, 30-second exposures, but of course I want to be on live composite. And again, if you're doing this with your DSLR or your other mirrorless camera, you would just select 30 seconds, whereas for me on live composite, I need to go into the menu, and I need to change it from 20 to 30 seconds. Okay, now what that means is that it's going to do the stacking. It's going to do the stacking that you would do in post, but it's just going to stack them in camera, which is really awesome. And it outputs it as a raw file so we can make all the tweaks and adjustments that we want to make. I'll talk you through the process that we're going to go through once we set the exposure, because we want to illuminate the foreground a bit. So what I'm going to do is, because we've got the camera set really sensitive, we're on, what are we on? We're on ISO 1600, f1.2 for 30 seconds. So things are really sensitive. So what I've got is I've got this torch here. And when I start the exposure, all I'm going to do, can you see it on that side? Yes. All I'm going to do is I'm going to start the exposure. And while it's dark, you'll see I'm just going to move I'm just going to have the torch up to the side up here, and it's just going to delicately illuminate that piece of wood and the wire. And of course, it's only the first image, or if with live composite, it's the first couple of frames, and then we stack it afterwards. You don't need to leave your torch there for the entire time. Even if you're stacking them in post-production, you only need to have it there for a little while. So yeah, so the process is we turn the camera on, start the exposure, light the thing. Because it's live composite, I can check it on the back, and you'll be able to see in a second that the stars are going to be nice and out of focus. All right, I'm going to bring the camera up a little closer so you can see. So what I'll do is let's turn some of these video lights off. Oh, it's so difficult to explain how unbelievably bright the stars are tonight. It's absolutely incredible, and it's very still and it's very cold. Okay, so you're probably not going to be able to see on this one, but I've got my light here. Let's turn this on. Okay, so now with live composite, as you can see on the screen there, it pretty much talks us through it. So I'm set at f1.2, live composite, 30-second exposures. So what we do is it asks us to press the shutter button once. So I press it, and it's going to do it's going to basically look out there for 30 seconds, have a look at it, write that to the sensor, and that's our base setting for how much light there is. All right, so it's ready to go. So what I'm going to do, this is the process. I'm going to press go. It'll start taking an exposure, and I'm going to just bring my torch off to the side. Now remember, always, like we talk about, you never want to light from the front because it makes the image flat. So I'm bringing the torch off to the side, and I'm going to count. I'm going to count 10 seconds. The reason that I count 10 seconds is that if it's too little or too much, I can count more or less for the amount of light. Okay, let's go. So I've pressed go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Torch off. Even though the exposure is 30 seconds, we've got that light in there. Let's see what happens. So when we get to 30 seconds, it'll show us the exposure. And what I would really love to see is that bit of wood and a bit of metal lit up. Boom. And look at those stars. So the stars in the background are completely out of focus, which is so cool. All right, so I'm looking, and that wood looks nice and sharp to me, which I love. Now, we'll stay here for a little bit, and we'll see what happens at a minute. Cool. So what we'll be getting now is we'll be getting a little bit of twisting in the stars. And because I've taken the torch away now. Now I'm looking at that piece of wood in front of the camera, and it's pitch black. But because it's stacking it in the camera, it's just stacking the things that are added that are bright. So we're not going to be adding any more light. And what we'll get is we will just get movement in the stars. Now, the interesting thing is that those stars that are behind that piece of wood are very close to the pole star. So we're going to get a rotation. We're not going to get a massive streak of stars through the middle, which is really neat. Now, I'm not going to leave the recorder recording here for until we're finished. I reckon we're probably going to leave that going just to show you and make the point, but probably half an hour or so. The cool thing about live composite is we can leave this going for 3 hours, which is absolutely bonkers. But we're not going to do that tonight. I'm going to wander over and we're going to do some other bits and pieces. I'm going to leave this camera here, and we'll come back and take a look in about half an hour and see what's happening. Awesome. See you soon. That bokeh looks so nice. Alrighty. See you in a tick. All right, so we've come back and this exposure has been going now for 25 minutes, which is a bit of fun. And if we take a look at it, you can see that even though it's taken 51 30-second exposures, the wood and the metal in the foreground are they're still exactly as they were, because they're sitting in pitch black now. And look at that bokeh, it's so much fun. I would have picked a part of the sky that had a lot more stars in it had I sort of had a bit more time to think about it. But what it does is it shows you just how much fun you can have with a really shallow depth of field, a tighter lens. We've light painted the foreground and just let those stars go hard in the background, and I reckon they look a huge amount of fun in post. And the other thing it does, of course, is have a look at the colors. It makes you realize even more so just how much color is up there in that sky and in those stars. So I'll show you how it looks actually post-processed, because you can have a huge amount of fun with it. But I'll stop it now. A reminder, of course, with the live composite on the Ollie gear, you can go for 3 hours, so you can create some astonishing star trails with that. So I'll stop it there and I'll show you how it goes. Yeah, awesome. Huge amount of fun, star trails. Sorry, I forgot to mention. Yeah, so let's stop the exposure. And what it does is it does a long exposure noise reduction. Now, I would normally turn this off. I have quite sort of strong feelings about noise reduction, but I'm not actually sure how to turn it off with this. So what it does is I'm going to reach over and I'm going to press the go button. And what it does is it'll do the noise reduction for the amount of time that the exposure was. So we were doing 30-second exposures. So it's going to do a 30-second noise reduction. Alrighty, let's have a peek. So I'll hit play. Oh, I've got gloves on it, so okay, hit play. Let's zoom in and check. Yeah, so let's go across. Cool, so that wood is nice and super sharp, but check out the stars behind. It's so bloody nice. I love that. Nice quality bokeh. These lenses are gorgeous. It's the 25mm f1.2 Ollie lens. Super sharp. Lovely bokeh. Gorgeous. Let's take a look at it post-processed as well. It's just lovely. Alrighty, I'll catch you soon. Alrighty, let's take a look at these 2 images that we captured out with the bokeh. This is the first one. This is the test image that I did just to check that everything was in focus. So this was the short one, and then this one here was the long exposure, and it's fascinating. You know, you see these on the back of the camera and they look amazing, but when you bring them into Lightroom to take a look, it just gets even crazier. And I want to point a couple of things out with this image. So the amazing thing is it's just astonishingly sharp. You know, these f1.2 Olympus Pro lenses are just gorgeous, and because they're f1.2, you do get this beautiful bokeh in the background. So here's a few things. There's a little surprise. There's this bit of light here on the left. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I really like it. The other thing is that the image is pretty clean. I mean, when you bring these into Lightroom, if you look over to the right here, my Lightroom automatically adds sharpening when I bring it in. I can probably turn that off somewhere, but if I reduce that back, it actually cleans up the background a bit. But you know, I love this photograph, and with all of my post-processing that you'll see, I keep it really simple. I always want you to and people to see these images and realize that this is actually what we saw on the camera. So just like always, I'm just doing the basics. You know, we're just enhancing the image. It's probably a little warm. There's, you know, the sky, because the Milky Way is behind, you can sort of see the Milky Way is behind here, so it is quite red. I'm just going to cool it down a little bit, just a touch. I don't really need to touch the shadows or highlights. Maybe the blacks a touch, you know. But the problem is if you start sliding that black slider down, you lose the detail on this piece of wood here. You know, you can always bring it back with some with the shadow slider, but we lose you know, we lose something there. So I'm not going to play with these too much at all. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't have used such a yellow light on the piece of wood. I might have even gone a little orange. Do we give it some clarity? Probably not. There's really not a lot I really want to change on this image. You know, I think with any astro, it's very easy to dive on the dehaze slider. I'm not a huge fan. It was a very bright sky, so I want to leave it bright. Bit of saturation. And here's the crazy thing, right? Look at the color in these stars. That is actual color that exists in the sky, which always blows my mind. You know, stars are very, very colorful things. Let's come down and take a look at a bit of sharpening. I mean, maybe a touch. You know, we'll do the old masking trick, option and slide on the masking, just to bring, you know, it sort of shows us, we might give it a little bit just to bring out a bit of detail on this log here. We'll remove chromatic aberration. You know, it takes away. Let's see if it actually removed any. Yeah, not really. I mean, the image is pretty clean. There's not a lot to take away there. And I'm not even going to touch noise reduction. You know, and the reason why is that if we give it some noise reduction, it takes away from the rest of the, you know, I don't want that fake feeling of noise reduction. I want the detail in the wood. I want the detail in the sky. It's very tempting to just slam that noise reduction slider. You know, I tend not to do that. I'm not going to do a crop. Normally I would give it a 16:9 crop because that's my preferred type of crop. But I think we lose a bit with this image. You know, when I put it back into the tutorial, you know, it'll be 16:9. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to leave it as the full image, and I'll put it back into the tutorial as that. Yeah, I love it. It's a very cool image. You know, it served the purpose of what we needed, and it shows you just how amazing the stars can look when they're bokeh'd out. So I'm just going to export this. Full size into the folder that I want. I'm not going to change anything. Boom, there we go. It's gone. Yeah, so there we go. It's gone. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this tutorial. A huge amount of fun playing with live composite, playing with stars, and playing with stuff at night. I love it so much. Thanks a lot. See you soon. I hope you enjoyed this visit to the School of Light. Just a friendly reminder that I support the channel by the sale of light painting tools over on the website. I hand make everything there, and I hope you find something to take away on your light painting journey. Of course, subscribing to the channel, sharing with people that you think might like some light in their life would be a massive help. I hope you have fun. Peace.